What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith, and welcome to The Nerdy Narrative. This is a channel where I like to talk about all of the fun bookish related things that I read. I do primarily stick to science fiction, fantasy, and horror, but I often dabble in other genres as well. So chances are you and I are going to have something in common at some point. Today is Friday, and you know what that means. It is time for me to share with you all of the things that I read, what I'm still reading, what I plan to read next, and some book mail that I received this week. As usual, there will be timestamps in the description box down below so you can skip around to the section that interests you the most. If you have already seen my March TBR, you heard me mention that I was planning to read Severed by Joshua Marcella. Severed is the sequel to his novella Scratches that came out last year. I am very, very excited to read this book. The element that I found the most compelling in Scratches is explored in great detail here. I'm really excited. I've already seen some preliminary reviews come out for it, and they are all very, very high. I can't wait. I actually ordered my copy of Severed directly from Joshua Marcella, but in addition to the book, he also sent me some stickers from Scratches, the very first novella, and then I got a sticker for Severed and a bookmark for Severed. So the stickers are going to go on the book cart, and then I of course got my autographed copy. I am so very excited. I really love Scratches. I have a very good feeling about Severed. And I am going to be a part of a live stream with Nikki from Dark Between Pages with a few other booktube friends from the horror community. But we're going to be in a live stream with Joshua Marcella, very much like the one we did with Eric LaRocca, if you saw that. So that will be on March 18th, and I cannot wait. Start off with the short story that I picked in last week's video to read this week, and that was from the collection of stories of Clarice Lispector. I read Beginnings of a Fortune. This story really tickled me. It's about a young man who was trying to negotiate with his parents for a higher allowance. He just determined that in order to be happy and do all the things, he needed more money. He was so focused on more money, and it was just really funny to be in his head and see his thought process. His friends were like trying to get him to go out to a movie and pay for this girl that wanted to go with him, and he was just thinking to himself, you know, is she worth it? Is she even going to enjoy the movie? Is it an investment and I don't have the money? I'm going to have to borrow it from my friend. Do I want to go ahead and put myself into debt to take this girl? And it was so funny to be inside his head because he eventually got to the point where he was like, you know, even if I have more money, would I even want to spend it? It was just a very delightful story. I enjoyed it just like I knew that I would. I just can't see myself finding something by Clarice Lispector that I will not like. The next book that I completed last week is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. It's the first book in its series. I absolutely loved this book. I was in a live stream with Alan from the Library of Alexandria, along with Pete from Ponderings of Pete and Christy Lewis from Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. We had a very lively conversation about this book. It was definitely spoiler filled, so if you haven't read it, do not go watch that show. For those of you that have read it and enjoyed the book, I will have it linked in the description box down below. I absolutely love this book. Cannot wait to continue the series this month with Golden Sun. A lot of folks did not particularly care for Pierce Brown's writing style on this one, but they said that he fixes it in the second book. I didn't find any faults with it, so I am very much excited to see what book 2 has in store for me. I fell in love with this book at the very beginning with the plot, which is unusual for me. I'm very character driven, but I got my character fixed because in the second half, I loved the character development. I was very much invested in all of them, good and bad. Can't wait to follow them and this adventure as it goes through. I definitely will have the Expanse series on hold until I finish this one out. So the next book that I finished and absolutely enjoyed every turn of the page is The Blade Itself, the first book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Just like Red Rising, I was also part of a collaboration with Steve Talks Books and Stuff and Yolene Reads. Both of their channels will be linked below along with the discussion. It is filled with spoilers, so if you haven't read this book, don't watch it. Only watch it if you read this book and you enjoyed it. But I laughed and chuckled my entire way through this story. I loved it. I feel that this book was written for readers like me, as I just mentioned, very character driven. This book to me was nothing but characters that were moving the story forward. There wasn't a lot of plot, not that I could see, not enough for me to really grasp onto anyway. The love for me were all of the characters. All of the characters were just presented in a way that I either loved or enjoyed laughing at or laughing with. I cannot wait to continue this series. I've heard that the next book is way better than this one, and I'm just wondering how that is possible, but I cannot wait to find out for myself. So that takes care of everything that I finished reading. Let's talk about what I am still reading. I still haven't made any progress with Elantris. I've meant to, I just don't care to pick it up. I just have so many other things that I like way better. I did check Libby to see if I could get the audiobook so that I would listen to it while cooking or cleaning. Things that I have to do that I wouldn't mind having something to listen to. But there's like a 5-week wait. And I'm really I'm really trying to reach for it. I really am. But oh man, I can't find it in me to do it. I just can't. It's possible this might become a DNF for me. We'll see. Maybe I can convince myself to just sit down for an hour and read a chunk and see if I just get that famous Sandra Lynch started to carry me through to the end. I don't know, but I didn't read any of it last week. The other book that I started and still working on is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This book is filled with everything 80s you can imagine. Video games, music, movies, the style, everything you can imagine. It is just a fantastic homage to that decade that I love. I'm just over 100 pages in and things are picking up as far as the plot and what the premise is, which is basically an Easter egg hunt for Holiday's fortune, which is going to get left to whatever person completes this quest, this puzzle that he left when he died. Thoroughly enjoying all of the 80s mentions and the walk down memory lane. The story hadn't reached out and grabbed me yet. I'm interested, I'm enjoying it, but it's not something that I am just absolutely dying to pick up. At least not yet, but we'll see. I'm very early on, and it could be part of that is due to some of the other things that I've been reading alongside of it. And one of those things is the other book that I started, which I'm reading the e-arc on my Kindle, and that is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. You guys know in January I read The Only Good Indians by him and just fell in love with that book, with him as an author. I was so excited to be able to get my hands on this e-arc. I've pre-ordered the book, like I've already purchased the book, but the opportunity to go ahead and read it was just, oh my gosh, just absolutely wonderful. The first chapter really got me. In fact, it was nighttime, I read it, and after I read that chapter, I noped right out of that book and decided this was going to be a daytime reading book. However, when I picked it up the next day, I read about 25% of the book at that point, and the tone had shifted. Right now, I'm following an 18-year-old girl named Jade. She is a huge horror fan, specifically slasher. And so she is just making all of these references to the movies that I grew up on, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Michael Myers, just all of those. I absolutely loved Friday the 13th. My parents would actually let me watch those when I was a kid, and they didn't bother me. I loved Jason. I loved Freddy Krueger, although I was a little older when Freddy hit, and he did get me a little bit. Like, there was this one corner of my bedroom back then. It was very dark, like no light reached it whatsoever, and I just knew he was there watching me. I've just been enjoying the references. I'm very delighted that the humor I saw him use in The Only Good Indians regarding fantasy authors, he is also incorporating into this one. But I definitely hope to finish that one the next day or so. I read 25% of it in one day, so it's just been a very delightful read. But I just have this feeling, I think he's fooling me. I think any second now I'm gonna turn a page and stuff's gonna get real. So I am very much looking forward to continuing that book this afternoon. I may even try to binge it out, who knows. Also a third of the way through the Nailbiter comic series by Joshua Williamson. This one is an American horror comic, very much true crime vibes off of it, which I am a huge fan of true crime. I will watch every documentary on serial killers that they will put out there. This one just definitely reached out and grabbed me, but I am absolutely looking forward to continuing that series. I'll be reading the next 10 issues next week. It's a buddy read with Una, and we might have a special something showing up later this month. You'll just have to keep watching our channels to see. And as far as what's next, once I finish My Heart is a Chainsaw, I will be going directly into Severed by Joshua Marcella. This one is only 120 pages long. I love Joshua Marcella's writing. I binged Scratches in a day, so I fully expect to binge Severed because I've really been looking forward to it. I'm very excited to get into this one. And then once I finish Severed, I will be continuing down the path to the Dark Tower with The Drawing of Three by Stephen King. I am so hyped for this book. So many of you guys have told me this is your favorite in the series, so that has me really pumped to read it. It's also been really fun because I have a couple of my friends that are on this journey with me. I've got my friend Penny reading it with me, and I'm also going to be reading it with one of my booktube buddies, Connor, from the channel Connor Stompanato. Y'all have heard me mention him before. I love him to death. I will have him linked below as well. But I'm very excited to see what happens next. Y'all remember, I have a ton of questions from the gunslinger. I am very eager to get some answers. So for this week's short story, I'm going to read The Butcher of Anderson Station by James S.A. Corey. This is the short story that comes after Leviathan Wakes, but before the next book in the Expanse series. So I'm going to slide that one in this weekend. I believe there's one or two more short stories that come before the next book. So I'm going to try and get those knocked out over the next couple of weeks so that when I finish Red Rising, I'll be ready to slide right into that next book. Guys, that is a wrap. That will take care of everything I got up to reading wise last week. What about you guys? What did you get into last week that you're really excited and you want to share something about? Hit me up in the comments down below. I'm always looking for my next read or my next new genre to try out. Thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate the time you spent seeing what is going on in my little corner of the world. I hope your morning got off to a great start. I hope you have the most fantastic rest of your day. I'll see you soon.